Hi everyone, it's Brian McNely from Ball State University and the Emerging Media Initiative, and today I'm doing a screencast of my recent talk at the Thomas R. Watson Conference at the University of Louisville. This was October 14th, 2010. The title of my talk is a little bit different than what was listed in the program, but the general focus is exactly the same. I'm going to spend the next few minutes discussing concrete curricular instantiations of undergraduate research at our institution in the form of the vertical curriculum that comprises our professional writing minor and that hopefully feeds into our undergraduate major in rhetoric and writing. So my interest in working undergraduate research into English studies began back in the summer of 2007 when I was a doctoral student at the University of Texas at El Paso. Shortly after taking a summer seminar on curriculum design, I was visiting family in the Bay Area, and I couldn't help but notice this banner on the campus of UC Berkeley. And this struck me as particularly interesting, this establishment of expectations by UC Berkeley about the role of incoming undergraduates. And I thought to myself, why couldn't we establish similar expectations for undergraduate students in rhetoric and writing studies at UTEP? Why can't they too be undergraduate researchers in our field? And who's to say they can't be even quote-unquote greater than those at Berkeley? So shortly thereafter, I was charged with redesigning the workplace writing course at UTEP, and the particulars and eventual outcomes of that redesign are detailed in my chapter for undergraduate research in English studies, a collection that was published by NCTE earlier this year. So since leaving UTEP, I've continued to position my students as researchers of rhetoric and writing, and in doing so, establishing an expectation that they'll not only learn from the models that they encounter, but that they'll contribute disciplinary knowledge where appropriate. So for example, I've just published an article on digital culture and education that was co-written by two undergraduate students from Ball State. But despite these successes, I'm even more interested in how we work undergraduate research into all stages of the rhetoric and writing curriculum. So in order to explore that interest, I'm going to touch on three things in the rest of the talk. First, the real work of undergraduate research. Second, models and precedents for inculcating that work within our field. And then finally, the vertical curriculum of our professional writing minor here at Ball State. Sydney Smith, as was mentioned earlier in this panel presentation, argues that all stages of the curricula, quote, can be directed to the real work of producing knowledge and incorporating meaningful student research, end quote. This work should also engage students in collaborative experiences and produce effects that last beyond a given semester. And I'm arguing now that this work should involve wading in patterns. One way to accomplish this real work is by positioning students explicitly as knowledge workers from the earliest stages of a given curriculum. Doing so encourages students to see these broader patterns and meta-level disciplinary concerns, specifically working with one another as they work with their instructors, since they are positioned early on as potential contributors to those very concerns. Spinuzzi defines knowledge work as that in which the primary product is knowledge, information that is continually interpreted and circulated across organizational boundaries. And I argue that knowledge work is a construct that should inform writing curriculum and pedagogy, one that can be productively articulated with recent trends in undergraduate research, as detailed, for example, in Karukstis and Elgren 2007. Positioning students as knowledge workers is, in large measure, to position them explicitly as researchers. So students as knowledge workers should be versed in the broader patterns of disciplinary knowledge. Spinuzzi, for example, suggests that rhetoric is crucial to effective knowledge work, and that rhetoric plays a key role in breaking apart the black boxes of academic and traditional work environments. From seeing meta-level patterns, the real work of contributing to disciplinary knowledge via undergraduate research activities can be instantiated by students opening the black boxes of academic work in rhetoric and writing studies. So in other words, a knowledge work approach represents a shift from current traditional models of student learning, where a focus on genres, conventions, and skills gives way to students studying and practicing the actual work of making knowledge via scholarship. Once students can see some of the broader patterns in a knowledge work approach, they can begin to find the spaces to make their own contributions to those patterns. Now, while there are many ways of going about this work, I'm going to be discussing qualitative methods of writing and user experience research in professional and technical communication as a way to concretely instantiate undergraduate research in the curriculum. Once the black boxes of academic research are opened and explored, once students learn and practice some of the actual methods and approaches of the germinal research that they read, they can see that the tools and approaches aren't necessarily untouchable or extraordinarily complex. Sometimes very complex patterns are made with simple tools. And implement a canvas on which to compose, for example, are sometimes all that's needed, as in these images from Jim Denovan's work that I've been showing. For beginning qualitative researchers of human writing activities, the capacity to form good, researchable questions, the practice of keen observation, and the ability to talk with real human subjects is all that's necessary sometimes to make potentially significant contributions to the real work of the field. Now, there are, of course, rich precedents for this kind of work, especially in professional and technical communication. And knowledge work approaches have seen increasing currency in these areas since 2005 with the work of John Dan Johnson-Alola, Clay Spinuzzi, Bill Hart-Davidson, Jeff Grable, Mark Zachary, and Jason Swartz, among others. From within these knowledge work approaches, there are strong examples of undergraduate students performing IRB-approved qualitative research in rhetoric and writing studies. For example, Clay Spinuzzi teaches courses in text ecologies, genre ecologies, and research methods in rhetoric at UT Austin. His courses don't simply model and teach research methods. Students actually approach research sites, acquire site permissions, complete IRB protocols, and conduct small-scale studies. And often, as Clay will tell you, they knock the ball out of the park. My friend and research partner Krista Teston at Rowan University employs a similar approach in her Technologies in the Future of Writing course, where students plan and conduct small-scale qualitative research studies in collaborative teams, producing a collaboratively written white paper as a final deliverable. Krista and I have recently completed a study of these students' experiences, and we offer some recommendations about how to effectively incorporate such work into undergraduate writing courses. Last fall, in concert with my colleague Jackie Gruch McKinney, we proposed and implemented a new minor in professional writing at Ball State, with specific emphasis on emerging media and user experience research. Comprised of 5 courses total, I'm going to focus on the 3 courses that are intentionally vertically aligned and that constitute the core of the program. University core course, English 213, is Introduction to Digital Literacies, but even more, this course is an introduction to epistemic rhetoric and core disciplinary issues in meaning-making through writing. From that framework, students explore and then do real work for real audiences, learning some of the rhetorical infrastructures of web-based writing, such as XHTML and CSS, while practicing how to write for unabashedly public audiences. While this is a course that is ostensibly focused on digital literacies, what students explore at every turn are the broader patterns of people acting with technology, drawing from Keptelainen and Nardi, 2006. The focus is on human factors and human activities, most often instantiated on the web via literate activity. English 231, a course predominantly populated by students who are not English majors, is the core professional writing course. Ideas in epistemic rhetoric, knowledge work, distributed work, and human agency are extended and applied to organizational contexts. More importantly, however, this course introduces students to qualitative methods of research and expects students as knowledge workers to design and execute small-scale studies similar to the models mentioned previously. In fact, 231 students work in collaborative teams, as in Teston's model, producing collaborative white papers that report on findings from studies of people acting and collaborating with writing technologies. 213 and 231 are prerequisites to 431, Rhetoric, Writing, and Emerging Media. This course will run for the first time this spring and will extend the public writing activities of 213 and the qualitative research practices of 231 to produce research that makes a contribution to professional communication, human-computer interaction, and more broadly the field of rhetoric and writing studies. Positioned as knowledge workers from at least the 200 level, this capstone experience places an expectation upon students in the program to apply their knowledge and to contribute publicly to the field. As in 231, students will plan and execute qualitative studies, and like 213, they'll disseminate their work for authentic public audiences. And by the end of the course and the end of the program, they should be able to do so in a way that contributes meaningfully to the broader patterns of disciplinary knowledge. Now, a primary driver of this vertical curriculum is the charge to think, make, and interact. Students are not passive consumers in this model, but active contributors to the learning of their peers and the knowledge of the field. Much of this work starts small, like tracing little circles in the sand that emanate outward, taking on more and more significance as they're added to and articulated with other patterns and bigger circles. Undergraduate research in a knowledge work model is central to our professional writing curriculum, and such experiences are designed to be vertical, leading from measurable, small-scale interventions to broader instantiations that can promote real-work contributions to the field. Now, if you have questions about the Watson talk or about the professional writing and emerging media curricula here at Ball State, please don't hesitate to contact me, and I hope this talk was in some way valuable.